Discussed because we really can't have economic, social, or cultural rights.
Can you indicate your name?
Yeah. My name is Kate Barth. I am the legal director at Freedom Now, which is an NGO that works to free political prisoners around the world. We currently have a few clients in Ethiopia, including Anduala Maregi and Niskin Dunega, who I'm sure you're aware the UN has recently confirmed that his detention was arbitrary. So I know from my civil society contacts in Ethiopia, as well as the family of my clients, that there is some concern that this commission effectively operates to kind of put a pleasant face on some of the government abuses. And I have to say I have unfortunately seen that in some of my own legal work. So my question is whether this commission is taking any steps to make sure that it is really independent of the executive, so that it serves the interests of the victims of abuses as opposed to the government. Thank you.
Well, first and foremost, I would like to thank you again for this opportunity to reflect on some of the questions you raised. For example, on the prisoners. Well, the Commission has been, of course, working on prisoners' rights, and we have already submitted our report on the overall treatment of prisoners inside the prison, and we have made that very clear to the Parliament in our recent report. And we have indicated and identified the main challenges, for example, in the prison, and the shortcomings that we have witnessed inside the prison. So I think that can be done by an independent institution, because the independence of any institution needs to be measured by the very well known principles and norms internationally. So and the recent report that we have submitted to the House on, in fact, two reports that has to do with the disturbances in parts of Oromia, Amhara, and Southern. I think we made accountable the executive body. Parts of the government are now accountable, and they are held accountable for and be brought before the law, before the court. Such actions can speak for themselves. If not, if the Commission was not independent enough, I think we hardly would produce such reports and submit to the House. I think that's the difference we have made over the last 2 years, and we are going to continue with making sure that law is respected and people who really violate human rights are held accountable. Now you can witness and you can come over to the country and see those who really violated law, violated human rights law, are now held accountable. So that is one very bold indicator of an institution that is working really independent. So even in regard to the prisoners, we quarterly monitor prisons around the country, and I think we have made impact on that. And maybe the impact was not yet, reached over this country, maybe, but we have made meaningful interactions with the prison officials. And in our schedule quarterly when we monitor prisoners. We try to find out as to whether the minimum standard rules are respected in prisons. And those minimum standards are, well, I can say in many prisons are well addressed, but we have still shortcomings in respecting the minimum standards that needs to be really respected in prison. So I think the Commission has done enough work to ensure its independence.
Yeah, hi, I'm Andrea Barron from the Torture, Abolition, and Survivor Support Coalition, or TASC. We help torture survivors from all over the world, and about 2/3 of the torture survivors we have are from Ethiopia, people that I know very well, who I've spoken with very frequently. My concern today is about the families of these survivors. When the survivors leave Ethiopia, many times their families are harassed, beaten, imprisoned, and one particular case, the 14-year-old daughter of a woman was raped after she left the country. So my question to you, as the head of this commission, can you investigate the practices of what happens to the families of the survivors when they leave the country?
Well, ma'am, just coming back to your question, well, I never heard about this case. But if it happens that if our commission somehow knows about this case, we would like to make sure that this would be investigated, and those who really violate and acted as or if the torture has taken place really on the ground, then we can investigate. We have many cases that has been investigated and submitted to the House, but never heard about this case, what you have just mentioned. So I would like to know about this case more deeply, if that's possible.
I'd like to thank the Ambassador and Mr. Commissioner for having this event. My name is Addisu Gebregziabher. I work at Amnesty International. Mr. Commissioner, you said that one of the things that your commission has been working on is good governance and addressing malgovernance, as you put it. And I think everyone in the room here would be very, very happy to have those words fully lived up to. And one of the key, I think, indicators is transparency, which you also mentioned in your comments. Many of the organizations that do international human rights monitoring do not have access to Ethiopia. The reports that you have mentioned are not available. Certainly I'm not aware of seeing them. And in many cases, the discussion of events over the last 3 years preceding the state of emergency, but certainly since the protests and demonstrations happened, have been reduced to a back and forth with a lack of ability to actually confirm findings, which therefore prohibits or hinders accountability. What would you say to the request about access for human rights organizations that can verify your work that you say you are doing around prisoners? What would you say to the request for access to investigate the legal processes under which these prisoners were jailed, many of which were jailed under laws or for actions that are protected by the African Union's Charter on Human Rights, as well as the International Covenant? These are the things that we would like to see Ethiopia be a model in terms of protecting and upholding. And unfortunately, right now, the image is not of that. So I'd very much like to hear your thoughts on those concerns.
Well, firstly, just let me address the reports that you have asked. Well, we post all our reports of the investigation and monitoring that we have done in our website. Our website was launched recently, so all about 2 months. So you can, I can give you the address, and then you can download all the reports submitted to the House. And those reports are the ones which have got the endorsement of the House of People's Representatives. some other reports are going to be uploaded recent, maybe in 1 month's time. So you can have those reports be accessed. In regard to the access for the international human rights campaigners, well, it's not the Commission that gives permission to come and work. It's sort of up to the government, and the Commission is have no say on that. Well, otherwise the Commission is, I don't know, as to whether we need some other investigators to follow up on the Commission work. I think we are accountable to the House, that means to the public, and they are the one who really see our work. And we are accountable to the Ethiopian people as a sovereign country. We need to respect that one. But if you need, to share some information or get some information on the investigation already made by the Commission, you can have that access from our website, or your colleagues were in my office, and then they have requested that, and our office has provided those information they needed for the Eastern of those who are in Cape. So I don't think there is a problem in sharing some of the information. Yeah.
On one of the points, the Commissioner just wanted me to respond to. First, I would like to thank the Amnesty International representative, with whom we frequently make a dialogue, very constructive dialogue. And he raised very important points that would be of help to our human rights issues. So I would like to thank you for that. With regards to engaging with Ethiopian officials, I have, when we met last, I have proposed to you, if you have issues to raise with Ethiopian officials, and if you like to travel to Ethiopia, I just propose to you, we can provide you visa. But the problem, most of the time, is rights organizations would play two hands. One is they would like to engage with the government, but not directly, through others. If someone wants, from Human Rights Watch or from Amnesty International or some others, if they like to go to Ethiopia officially, would like to do something, they can. If they like to open office, we would expect them to fill the necessary things and to fulfill the standards. That's it. And we can continue to dialogue on how we can continue to engage. Thank you.
Good evening, Dr. Addisu. Thank you for coming to brief us this evening. In your presentation, your event this evening, you have these three placards, and we've been given the papers, which demonstrate some measurable and solid accomplishments for which our government is motivated to consider your government an ally. You've done some things like peacekeeping and other things that we find very valuable. However, human rights advancements are not as measurable, except the release of political prisoners and the changing of laws that are considered to be repressive. Now, we note that Ambassador Gurma has told us for quite a while, and we've heard from you this evening about some of the things that you're engaged in, but at present they would have to be considered aspirational. These are things that you want to accomplish. These are things you're trying to accomplish. And for Congress, what we're looking for are the end results, which is why we still have issues to pursue, and we certainly hope that you have the accomplishments that you're looking for. I mean, that would be good for you, it would be good for us. Now, my chairman, Chris Smith, has been involved in working on human rights throughout his career, almost 40 years now, but for the last 12 years, he's been working on engaging your government. He's sent me when he wasn't there, we still would like to engage your government in making the reforms that you say you want to do. So if we still seem critical, it's because we want to help you to make achievements so that these aspirational goals are realized.
Hello, my name is Howie with the Office of Congressman Swazi. Thank you so much for being with us today. You talked a little bit about the inter-party dialogue that is happening with opposition leaders. I'm curious to hear your perspectives about who exactly is at the table. Who are these opposition leaders that you are engaging? I'm bringing this question up by recent parties like ODF, the Oromo Democratic Front, who want to come and who want to engage, who are actually viewed as a legitimate voice of the Oromo people. So who exactly is at the table and how are you moving in this negotiation process?
What we are now witnessing in Ethiopia is very encouraging and promising, the dialogue between all registered political parties. So as to the question, who are those parties involved in the dialogue, are those parties who are registered by the Electoral Board of Ethiopia. And there are 65 of them. 65 political parties are registered in Ethiopia, and to my knowledge, all are participated in the discussion for the electoral reform and relevant other bills to be reformed. I think that discussion is really, we have 65 almost political parties, and some of them operate at the regional level. Some of them are operating at the federal level. So we have two types of political parties in Ethiopia. Those who run for the elections at the federal level, and those who run at the regional level, for the regional council. So, but for this dialogue purpose, all registered political parties who are running for the local election and then national and the federal one are participating in the discussion. That's the information I have. So.
Lawrence Freeman, political economic analyst for Africa for about the last 25 years. One observation is that, from my standpoint, the most fundamental human right is the right to live. And therefore, economic development, which you mentioned in your presentation, is essential for people to actually live in terms of electricity, transportation, food, and having jobs. And that is still a major problem for Ethiopia and all of Africa. Second of all, I happened to be in Ethiopia when the violence took place last October. And there was anarchist activity. I think an American agricultural worker was killed when a rock was thrown through her car mistakenly. And there was violence, military use of arms. So from my standpoint, if you're going to politically demonstrate as an opposition, that's good. But if you're going to violently attack the government and use arms, that poses a different question. Afterwards, the Ethiopian government admitted that there was a lack of good governance and adequate economic capabilities for the people, which I saw myself when many people wanted to aspire to a higher economic standard of living. So I'd like to know how you mentioned that you have a plan, two plans actually, in terms of Human Rights Commission development. So how do you address these two questions of providing enough economic opportunity for people, especially the young, and two, the question of good governance, which I think was addressed by the Prime Minister himself after the demonstrations. Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir, for those questions. If you have come to know the second report that we have submitted to the House of People's Representatives, we have made it very clear in our recommendation that those who are not, or the unemployment rate in Ethiopia was in fact the contributory factor to the disturbances we have had in Ethiopia. So the economic issue is, of course, a central topic in the discussions that is taking place now in our country. So we have made it clear in our recommendation that unemployment has to be resolved. And thanks to the executive body, the government has allocated around 10 billion Ethiopian birr to resolve the issue that you have just mentioned. Now we have in Oromia regional state, we have been monitoring this last month. Around 1 million young generation are now working in the small and medium enterprises because of the budget that was allocated by the government. That means that the government has considered very seriously the recommendation of the Commission. As to the second question about ensuring good governance, of course, in our report we have mentioned that the root causes for the disturbances were the lack of good governance. At the local level, even at the higher level, officials were not adequately addressing the service delivery to the people. So if we need to resolve those issues and those identified main causes of the disturbances, good governance needs to be adequately addressed. Lack of good governance was the main root cause. So, and as you rightly said, because of lack of good governance, human rights violation is taking place. Good governance means it's a respect for human rights. Absence of good governance means violations of human rights. So the two issues needs to be looked at from that perspective. So from our commission, what we are doing is the awareness creation on the importance of good governance for the people. And people needs to be aware that ensuring good governance will ultimately solve the economic challenges that we have and ultimately solve the issues of service delivery, adequate service delivery to the people. Usually at the local level, we have seen that problem was really so bitter. So the people are now really asking about ensuring good governance. Now the Commission is creating awareness through face-to-face dialogue and through mass media, as I have highlighted, and that's where we are now.
Okay, thank you, Dr. Addisu, for coming to the United States and discuss the human rights issue in Ethiopia, but I'm really troubled that you were trying to hide for the government. You were saying you are independent organization, but like I don't think that's the fact, because you were like the vice chairman of the election board, which helped the government win 100% of the seat in parliament. There's a 547 seat, and EPRDF win all of the seats, and you were appointed by the parliament, which is part of the government, and you were investigating the government. And you say there were only 627 people were killed, and no one is being accountable for that. 600 people is a number for you, but like it's a brother, sister, mother, and father for us. It means a lot for us. It's really amazing that like you say you are independent, but you didn't mention about Skender Nega and Wala Marage and Dargacho Tsege, tortures that's happening in Makalawi. A female journalist is being tortured naked in front of like main security officers. Why don't you tell us about can you tell us about Dargacho Tsege, where he's been held? Why don't you tell us about the journalists who are being like detained without any charges? Thank you.
Well, in regard to the independence of the Commission, I think one has to look at this question very correctly. I believe that the action should speak much more louder than the words. If my commission or the office I'm working with have investigated what the executive body has done in response to the rioters during the disturbances, we have outlined what the causes were and the contributory factors to the disturbances. And in our report, we have made part of the government accountable. Now, if you want to speak in action, you have to see those people who held accountable.
Can you give me one name, one government official who's been accountable?
Well, I can give you not only just one, I can give you a list of the people who held accountable. For example, in Gedio zone, southern nations, more than 100 administrators of the Gedio zone are now in prison, and they have been brought to the court. And this you can see on the day-to-day news that the Ethiopian Broadcasting Agency is broadcasting throughout the world. And if you take in Amhara regional state, those administrators who really made the disturbances, those who caused the disturbances, are now held accountable, even in Oromia regional state. In those three regions, I have seen that the government has taken action based on the recommendations we made and based on the recommendations that has been endorsed by the House. And this is not just a number that you mentioned. It's not only a number for me. There are my country's fellow who really died in the disturbances, and we have expressed our condolences to those who lost their beloved ones in front of the parliament. So that's not a number.
That's a number.
The other one is about journalists you have mentioned. Anyone who is in the prison for the commission, it's not about their backgrounds. If you see the requirements of prison treatment, we have to treat all the people in the prison as to how they are treated, humanly or inhumanly. That we have to check. Our job is not to replace the court. Our job is to ensure that human rights are respected inside the prison. As I mentioned in my presentation, we have made it very clear as to the causes, for example, of inhuman treatment in prisons. Not in all parts of the prisons, but in some prisons we have identified the challenges, and we have made recommendations to the parliament. And based on our reports and recommendations, the parliament has endorsed. And one example I can give you is the Kalinto prison, where the fire has killed 23 prisoners, and we have really made it, we have investigated, and based on our investigation, we have recommended to the parliament, and the parliament has endorsed our report, and the officials of the prison are now in the prison themselves. So I don't want to really just talk about theoretical framework or only just words, but I'm telling you that the action that we have taken on the ground can speak for itself. Yeah.
Thank you very much, Dr. Addisu. We will continue the discussions, but I will invite His Excellency Ambassador Gemma to make concluding remarks.
Thank you. My intervention at this stage is just to thank Dr. Addisu and then to thank you for your contributions. And the contributions you have made today will help us on looking into things. And the last promise I would like to give you is next time we are going to organize this type of dialogue, in particular on this issue, in a different way. It's not going to be a question coming from the audience to a person from the Ethiopian side speaking. What we'll do next is all important partners who are engaged with us, from Congress, from rights organization, from the administration. If they have opinion, we'll listen to their opinion on how they look into the human rights situation of Ethiopia, and then the dialogue will be slightly different. So I thank you once again, and we have an Ethiopian cuisine prepared for you. And we'll continue our dialogue just by sharing food. And thank you once again.